Alrighty, so today we're going to preview the remaining games that finish off the Saturday night action and match week number 24 before we hit the All-Star break. And I'm going to try to do this video as quick as possible because the first game I'm going to talk about is Nashville SC versus Toronto FC. And this game, at the time of this recording, actually kick off in about 2.5 hours. And by the time this video is going to upload, it will be maybe about 2 hours before the game actually kick off. So it's a bit of a short notice, and I do apologize that I made this preview a little bit late, but as I said, I did just got back home from working, and that's pretty much how it is of me already planning to try to do a short notice kind of preview and trying to get this in before all these games does happen today. But we start off, like I said, is between Nashville SC versus Toronto FC, which will start at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific, but the actual kickoff is 7:08 p.m. local time. Nashville has an 8-9-7 record, while Toronto has a 6-5-12 record. Nashville, of course, leads this all-time meeting, but only just 2-1-1 over TFC. Remember, both of these teams were in the Eastern Conference for the past couple of years, and something tells me we could see in the future that they could be reunited in the Eastern Conference again. But in the last 5 games for Nashville, it's been a rough stretch for Nashville in these last 5 games. They drew 1-1 against the Portland Timbers, and actually that was a road game that they had, so I gotta switch that up. But they also drew 1-1 against Vancouver, and while that 1-1 draw against the Timbers, it was a good draw in a way that if you don't look at the refereeing kind of decision that gone against them, that 1-1 draw against Vancouver was not a good result, especially they were leading 1-0 and dominating the Whitecaps for the majority of the game, only to let the game slip away from them in the vital moment. But they also had a 1-1 draw against FC Cincinnati before losing 2-1 to LAFC and then winning 1-0 against the Seattle Sounders. Now for Toronto, in the last game they got a 0-0 draw against New England, but they also won 4-0 against Charlotte FC, and that was the Benedeschi/Insigne special, and that was kind of the game when we introduced those two Italian players that has been hyped up a lot to be the next best thing, not only for TFC but also in MLS. But we also saw a 1-0 loss that TFC had against Montreal in the Canadian Classic. Then it was a 2-0 loss against Chicago, and then a 2-2 draw between them and the San Jose Earthquakes. And mind you, the last free matchup is before when I talk about the much anticipated debut of both Benedeschi and Insigne into this team. And it's going to be interesting to see how this game is going to go, and especially for TFC, ever since both of those players that I mentioned have a big debut, they haven't really been that lethal going for on the attack. I mean, Benedeschi came close in the last game, scoring another goal if he didn't hit the woodwork, but for the most part, TFC has kind of cooled down a little bit in terms of the attack, and that hype that's around that, it feels like they're back to what we saw them being at their best back in 2016 and 17 is kind of died down a little bit. But they have a chance to of course try to bring that hype again, though it's not going to be easy against a Nashville team that they desperately need 3 points. Like, this is a team that I talked about many times with the problem that they have at home. This will be a great way for them to get a win. And even though the record shows that TFC is not a good team, when you look at all the addition that they made in the summer transfer window, this is a complete different TFC team than what we've seen in the beginning of the season. But now moving on, we got Sporting KC versus the LA Galaxy, which will start at 8:30 p.m. Eastern, 5:30 p.m. Pacific, but the actual kickoff is 7:33 p.m. local time. SKC have a 5-5-14 record, and currently I believe they own the wooden spoon spot right now, which is definitely not a spot that they were thinking that they were occupied heading into this season. Well, for the Galaxy, they also have had a miserable run this season with a 9-3-10 record, and not only they're now below the red line, but they're actually not even the first team out in terms of the playoffs that started today, and that they're actually in 9th position. Now this game is actually going to be on Twitter, and you remember how MLS game used to be on Twitter? I mean, it's been a while, but it's just a friendly reminder that unfortunately we're going to have to suffer through the pain again, and not only once in this one, we're actually going to suffer through the pain twice in this one, and just also a daily reminder that I'm so glad that next year we're going to have games on Apple TV, and let's just pray that we're not going to have these games that is also going to be on Twitter, or at the very best, at least if they are still going to be on Twitter, at least get better commentator than what we've seen in terms of all these Twitter games. That is one of the many things why a lot of people, including myself, hate Twitter stream. Now, in terms of the all-time meeting, the Galaxy does have a 31, 16, and 28 record over Sporting KC. In terms of the last 5 games for Sporting KC, yeah, it has been nothing but misery in these past couple of weeks. They lost 2-0 against Austin FC, lost 2-0 at home against LAFC, lost 3-0 against RSL. They did drew 1-1 against Minnesota before their last win was a 2-1 win against Sporting KC. Actually, no, I'm sorry. They got a 2-1 win against Montreal. They didn't get a win, but by themselves. Although, knowing how Sporting KC has been, it just kind of feels like the only wins that they had is when they, of course, are able to get a win against themselves. But yeah, overall, it's been a miserable run. And keep in mind, I mean, you mentioned the U.S. Open Cup semifinal loss that they suffer in the hands of Sacramento in a penalty kick shootout. And they're facing a Galaxy team that is also in a bad run right now. They lost 1-0 to FC Dallas. They did win 2-0 against Atlanta, but then they lost 2-0 to Colorado, lost 3-2 at home to the Quakes, and then lost 3-2 against LAFC on the road in El Tráfico. They have lost 4 out of their last 5 games, and we saw this coming with the way that they were in danger of falling out of the playoff line with this free fall that they were going through, and they have now indeed got it at a point where they are officially below the red line. And yeah, this is a game that if they want to get themselves back going, they need to win this game. I mean, for Sporting KC, I mean, that the season is pretty much done for them. They're just seeing things out. But for the Galaxy, their season is far from over. Like, they need to get things going, or else this could be another disastrous season, and could be also a year that we maybe see Greg Vanney potentially be on the hot seat. In fact, I'll probably need to start thinking about making a video in terms of the hot seat index of all the head coach of who can potentially be in the hot seat in just a couple of months, and at the end of the season, or even in a couple of weeks, when we might start to see some teams that might pull the trigger in terms of firing their head coach because of a bad season. But now, moving on, in terms of the next match, we got Austin FC versus the San Jose Earthquakes, which will start at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific, but the actual kickoff is 8:08 p.m. local time. The Quakes, just like Sporting KC, their season is pretty much done. They have a 5-8-10 record and sitting in 13th place. While Austin FC, they're trying to chase down LAFC for that top spot in the West and stay in the Supporters' Shield race, as they have a record of 13-5-5. Now, in terms of the all-time meeting, the Quakes have been unbeaten against Austin 2-2-0, but something tells me that probably is going to come to an end in this game. And in terms of the last 5 games, like I said, the reason why the Quakes season is pretty much done is that last four games have been the 4 games that it was supposed to be maybe the easiest stretch in their schedule, and they completely dropped the ball. They lost 1-0 against Inter Miami, drew 2-2 against RSL, lose 2-1 against the Portland Timbers, lose 2-1 at home against Houston. They did get that 3-2 win against the Galaxy, and that was kind of the false hope win that they thought that they maybe could get themselves back into a playoff race, and then yeah, they basically fall apart in the last 4 games. Now for Austin FC, they got a 2-0 win on the road against Sporting KC, but they did lose 4-3 at home against the Red Bulls. They did drew 1-1 against FC Dallas on the road, but then they also won 3-1 against Houston, and then winning 3-0 on the road against Atlanta United. And I'll tell you what, I have a feeling this could be an ugly game, and especially both Sebastian Jerussi and Diego Fagundes is going to really eat this Quakes defense alive. Like, this Quakes defense has had so much problem in these last couple of games that I won't be surprised they could be giving up like 3 or 4 goals against Austin FC, and this could maybe be similar to what we saw earlier this season. Remember earlier this season when Austin scored like 10 goals in the last or in the first 2 games, and this team is definitely a team that known to score a bunch of goals. This could be one of those games, but we'll see. Maybe the only thing I can hope for the Quakes in this game is that at least they have a good record against Austin and they know how to play against them. But this is by far the strongest Austin side that they're about to face. And in that first ever meeting that they had against Austin, they got lucky. They weren't blown out in that one. In fact, it was some bad decision on the part of Josh Wolf is kind of the reason why the Quakes were able to salvage a 2-2 draw in that first ever meeting. But now moving on, we got Colorado versus Minnesota. So back-to-back games I'm previewing that involves with my team. And this one, I'm not that confident with this one either. even though I know the Loons have one of the longest unbeaten run in MLS, but that unbeaten run could come to jeopardy because they're about to face against a team that I know for a long time they've always struggle, especially on the road, and that is the Colorado Rapids. And the Rapids have a 7-6-9 record, while Minnesota has a 10-5-8 record, as this game will also start at the same time as the Austin versus San Jose game, though the local kickoff is 7:08 p.m. as this the game that is kicking off here is in Mountain Time, and that one, of course, is in Central Time. But in terms of the all-time meeting, it's dead even at 6 wins apiece for both of these teams and 2 draw apiece. But the last 5 games for the Rapids, well, that 5-4 win that they had against the Red Bulls, which is arguably going down as one of the craziest games of this season, has pretty much saved their season in a way that they're now back into this playoff hunt. Because before that, they had a 2-1 loss against the Seattle Sounders. They did win 2-0 against the Galaxy, but then draw 1-1 against Orlando City, and also draw 2-2 against RSL. I mean, coming into that game against the Red Bulls, I think they only won like 1 game out of the last 8, and things were pretty much falling apart for this Rapids team. But that big win has really salvaged the season. Well, for Minnesota, they also were involved in a crazy game in their last game, a 4-4 draw against the Portland Timbers before winning 2-1 on the road against Houston. Then win 2-0 against DC United. Then got a 1-1 draw against Sporting KC before winning on the road 3-1 against the Vancouver Whitecaps. And in fact, this team has done very well this season on the road, which is probably one of the biggest surprise factor because this team has never been a good road team. But like I said, the reason why I don't have a lot of confidence is a combination of them not having a good record against Colorado. I mean, Dick's Sporting Goods Park is a house of horror for the Loons of all the time that they played there. And not to mention the fact that when you also look at how shorthanded this team is because of a bunch of guys that is going to be on yellow card accumulation, yeah, I think the Loons will be lucky if they can get a draw out of this game. And also consider, when you look at the standing itself, yes, they are in a very tight race for the playoffs, but in some way they got a lot of help, especially in the middle of the week, and they even got help today too with the way that the Seattle Sounders just lost to Atlanta United, which bit of a spoiler alert in terms of talking about the review from yesterday's game. If you're still haven't watched the preview of the all those games I've talked about to kick off match week number 24. But yeah, this team has gotten a lot of help, and let's just hope that maybe they'll get more help in terms of this match week, because the next game that we're going to talk about is a game where, as a Loons fan, I would definitely be rooting for LAFC and hope to get a win and hope to continue the strong run that they had, as they are going to be playing against RSL, a team that is pretty close in terms of where the Loons are in the standings. But for Real Salt Lake, they have a 9-7-7 record, while LAFC 15-3-4, the best record in MLS and leading the Supporters Shield standing. This game will start at 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific, but the actual kickoff is 8:08 p.m. local time. Now, this game is also going to be on Twitter, and what's interesting about this game also being on Twitter is that it's going to overlap with this one. So I'm not quite sure how this is going to work. I think maybe MLS is going to have like 2 Twitter streams at the same time, which if that's the case, that's a first. I've never seen that happen before. But in terms of the all-time meeting, LAFC have pretty much dominated this meeting, as it is the case for pretty much all the teams that they face. That they at least have the favorites in terms of the all-time meeting, with a 9-0-2 record against RSL. In terms of the last 5 games, RSL did get a 2-2 draw against the Quakes, but then they lost 1-0 at home against FC Dallas. They did win 3-0, not against Colorado, but actually against Sporting KC. So let me just fix that. Again, I wrote this so quickly that, sometimes I miswrite some of the teams on the last 5 games. So yeah, let me just fix that. Yeah, there we go. Oh, well, the screen pan isn't really working very well, but you get the point. They won 3-0 against Sporting KC in that one, but then they lost 2-1 on the road against Atlanta, and then they got a 2-2 draw against the Colorado Rapids. While for LAFC, it's 4th straight win coming into this game, followed by a big 2-1 win against the Seattle Sounder, a 2-0 win on the road against Sporting KC, a 2-1 win on the road against Nashville, a 3-2 win against the LA Galaxy and El Tráfico, and they did lose 1-0 against the Vancouver Whitecaps. That seems like the one team that they've always tends to struggle, but besides them, they're a team that no matter if they're playing at home or on the road, this is a very good team, and I expect they're going to give RSL a handful in this game, and that, again, as a Loons fan and as a fan of all these teams that is in the big jumble mess in terms of the Western Conference playoff race, I'm pretty sure a lot of them is going to be rooting for LAFC and hope that RSL not only draw points in this game, but also lose in this game too. But now, moving on in terms of the next match, and one of those teams that is going to be definitely rooting for LAFC to beat RSL is the Portland Timbers and FC Dallas, as both of these teams, of course, will face off against each other, and this is the second consecutive game that the Portland Timbers have a playoff 6-pointer, because, you know, both of these teams are even though they are separated by a bit in terms of the standings, again, the Western Conference right now, 3rd through 9th, is just so tight right now that there really isn't a lot to separate between all those teams that is in those spots. But for the Timbers, 7-11-6 record, while FC Dallas have a 9-8-7 record. This game will start at 10:30 p.m. Eastern, 7:30 p.m. Pacific, but the actual kickoff is 7:38 p.m. local time. All-time meeting, it's a very tight one, 12, 7, and 11 in favor of the Portland Timbers. But the last 5 games for the Timbers, it was a 1-1 draw against Nashville SC, and then a 4-4 draw against Minnesota. They did win 2-1 at home against the Quakes, drew 1-1 against Vancouver, and then win 3-0 against the Seattle Sounders. And just like what I said about Minnesota, this is also a team that has one of the longest unbeaten run. In fact, they're actually tied with Minnesota in terms of the longest unbeaten run currently at 8 games. Now, for FC Dallas, they did lose 1-0 against the Seattle Sounders, but they did win 1-0 against the Galaxy, and then winning 1-0 on the road against RSL. They drew 1-1 against Austin FC, and then lost 1-0 at home against 1-0 against NYCFC. So a lot of these games that FC Dallas has involved has been relatively low scoring, and we'll see whether this is going to be one of those two, because, again, there's a lot at stake in this game, and that when you have a game that have a lot at stake, and there could be some playoff implication that as we're heading into the home stretch, something tells me it could be a tight game and it could be a low scoring affair. But we'll see if that, of course, is the case. And yeah, there you have it. That is pretty much it for the preview of all 6 of these games to finish off the Saturday night action. Let me know in the comments below, what do you think of all 6 games? And I know it's a little bit late, but let me know in the comments below your prediction for all 6 of these game 2, if you, of course, are able to watch this video before all these games are going to start. But until then, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure to like, smash the subscribe button, and yeah, I, of course, will see you guys next time.